All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Includability's pre-launch event. I'm Rachael Latham, and I'm going to be guiding you through today's webinar. We're going to be going live up until about 1:45 this afternoon. So what's the aim of the session? We're going to be giving you, the audience, more of an understanding of what includability is all about and why it's important that it exists. So for those of you who are hearing about this platform for the first time today, simply, it's a job board that aims to make employment accessible to all. Okay, so who's joining us? We do have a very extensive group of people on today's panel. We're going to be talking to them all in a lot more detail, so question time should be very, very insightful. But to start us off, we have the founder of Includability, Paul Smith.
Thanks, Rachel, and look, thanks everyone for kind of joining us today on this event. And thank you so much to all of the guests for kind of giving us their time as well. And I think it's going to be a brilliant event for you. But as Rachel alluded to, the reason I'm here to kind of have a quick chat is to talk about why I wanted to create Includability in the first place and what's going to make it different. So Includability was really created, if I'm being perfectly honest with you all, out of probably frustration. We needed to find a job platform that we could partner with, where we could access a diverse pool of candidates. But we also wanted a platform that could give us the opportunity to engage and kind of really collaborate with other employers that felt the same way that we did. And we just couldn't find it. What we did find is there were some very good job boards out there that offered a very specific service, but were charging a fortune to use their service. So we decided, look, let's just do it ourselves. And that was kind of how Includability was born. So we're now further down the development phase. We've got a go live date of the 4th of May. And we've kind of flipped the lid a little bit. So rather than having kind of the employers choose how the candidates apply, we've put that onus onto the candidate. So there's multiple ways that candidates can apply for a role, be that a normal CV. We can do audio files, video files, GitHub experience, LinkedIn profiles, but also candidates, job seekers can engage directly with an employer. If they view the A to Z directory, there isn't a job on there that suits their skill sets. Candidates can register their interest with a company. The companies can absolutely access that candidate, talk to them directly, no additional fees. We're going to be offering company ambassadors. So company ambassadors are something that, as a business, you can have unlimited of these. They're essentially your employees that will be really good advocates for your business to further engage with prospective job seekers. And the reason to do that is getting candidates to look at a standard job advert, no matter how good it's written. Actually, they want to understand, what's the culture like? What's it like to work in there? Is there somebody like me working in that business that I could kind of engage with? That could be the difference between whether somebody does or doesn't apply. We're not saying that every company that uses Includability has to use it, but the opportunity to use it is there. And again, I want to reiterate, it is completely unlimited. You can have as many as you want on there. And then I suppose from an employer perspective, everyone's got the same idea. And I go back to when I was speaking to job boards. Without exception, every single one had amazing employers on board of all different sizes, but every single one had amazing employers on board. Not one of them spoke to each other, even though their end goal was exactly the same, which was to have as much of an authentically inclusive culture as possible. So we want to change that. So we want to get everyone collaborating. We want to get people communicating and, importantly, inspiring. We know that you can't have one person or a very small team driving culture change through a whole business. It's impossible to happen. So what we want to do is kind of empower your employees, get them on the Includability hubs. There's going to be 4 hubs. So there's going to be diversity and inclusion, ex-military, mental health and well-being, and I'm missing one, but I'll come back to it. And environment and sustainability. So we want employees who will talk to other employees outside of their own workplace, something they're really passionate about. Because if they can empower each other, they can build their own knowledge, and we can plug those educational gaps. We can collectively, definitely achieve authentically inclusive cultures far quicker than doing it on our own. So again, we're just trying to create this whole platform where companies can collaborate with each other. We've got most of the national charities on board, I'm really proud to say. We've got some amazing companies that have bought into this vision, to this concept, to this initiative of includability. And every single one's had their input. To get to where we've got to now, everyone's had their input. And that's what's going to make the difference to this job platform compared to others, is people's willingness to get involved, to engage with people. You know, there's so many good, talented people out there. Let's get speaking. Let's kind of share those initiatives. Let's share best practice. Let's kind of celebrate those success stories. So this isn't a platform where we want to hit people over the head with a stick. It's about, where are you at? It's a realistic, here's where we're at now. Where do we want to get to? There will be somebody associated with this job platform that can help you get there. We've got an incredible array of ambassadors that are giving up their time for free to further engage, to inspire, not just with job seekers, but with employees, telling their own story, that want to be part of this, because change has to happen. I also want to reiterate, and I say it with passion, is we haven't created this job board to get everyone on board. It's only for people that actually want to make a difference, that are fully committed to treating people equitably, and that want to be game changers. You know, because the opportunity is there, change needs to happen, and we would absolutely love you on board. But if that isn't your vision, that is fine also. Yeah, there are plenty of other job boards out there for you. We completely understand that. But what we've got right now is we've got a group of people that share the same vision, that are working together, that want to do this. So I suppose, finally, the other thing that kind of hopefully will make us a little bit different is we genuinely care. We want to make a difference, not just from a diversity and inclusion perspective. You know, mental health and well-being is equally as important, and you know, getting your employees from a mental health perspective, making sure there's people. We've got Michael from, you know, the mental health charter on today, and over the last, you know, 3 or 4 months, I've been inspired and kind of overwhelmed by the level of support and listening to people's stories. And if as a platform we can make a difference to one person's life, and we can make one person make that decision quicker, then we're doing it for the right reasons. The most important thing is we're not doing this from a get rich quick scheme. This is we want to do it. We want to do it well. Everyone that you'll meet today is on board with what we're trying to achieve here. Before I leave, and I'll say some words right at the very end, we've got some brilliant charities involved, but we've chosen 2 charities that we're going to be supporting over the coming 12 months. So that will mean that a percentage of every single bit of revenue that we make will be donated to these amazing charities, and they can do a far better job than I can of introducing it. So firstly, what I'd like to do is kind of hand you over to Ashley. Ashley is the founder of Panathlon. So Ashley, tell us a bit about kind of Panathlon and the charity work that you do.
Thanks, Paul. Panathlon is a charity for children with disabilities and special educational needs. We've been going for 20 years, and we create sporting opportunities for those children that might not normally have access to them. That's either at a very local level, just within school, or with your local school down the road. But we do have a competitive pathway right through to national competitions that end up in the Olympic Park and Stoke Mandeville, and some quite exciting sporting facilities. So obviously in the last year we've been virtual, working in schools, supplying a lot of equipment to schools to continue that good work, but hopefully soon we'll be able to get back to running 400-500 events a year like we normally do, that bring a lot of children together, so they benefit not only from a sporting and physical point of view, but from all those social benefits and mental health as well. So I'd just like to thank Paul and Liz and Adil and all the creative people behind this initiative, a new venture, for benefiting Panathlon and also the next charity here about, and clearly vested interest here in that we have tens of thousands of children involved each year, and a proportion of them will be going on to the job market each year, and anything that makes that more inclusive is something to be applauded. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ashley. And I think following on from that, actually, it's really worth noting that Adil, who you will hear from later on, is somebody that actually was first introduced to Ashley by actually being an athlete. Yeah, he's now kind of progressed. Ashley and they have a great relationship. And in fact, Adil's probably now kind of Ashley's manager because he's a trustee of the charity as well. But again, you'll hear from Adil later on. And Karen, tell us about Buddy Bag Foundation.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Karen Williams. I'm the founder of the Buddy Bag Foundation. You may be shocked to hear that over 48,000 children require emergency care every single year. These children have been victims of domestic violence, are often taken from the family home in the middle of the night and relocated to another part of the country, having left everything they own and everybody they love behind. What we do at the Buddy Bag Foundation is we provide a bag of love, a rucksack that contains 12 essential items that makes a real difference to these children when they arrive in emergency care. A little bit of love, a little bit of security that is left for them on their bed when they arrive. We've just celebrated our 5th year. We've been very busy and we've delivered over 31,000 buddy bags during this period, making a difference to over 31,000 children in emergency care. We are very passionate about community social responsibility, and we engage with individuals and corporates to enable them to give back, whether that's a couple of hours of their time to pack our buddy bags, whether it's a donation, or whether it's providing their services, because we believe together we can make a real difference. And I just want to say a massive thank you for you guys for choosing us as one of your charities. We're really excited about working with you over the next 12 months. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Honestly, the work that the two charities do, albeit very, very different, you know, it's incredibly important that we kind of do support them. So yeah, that's the two charities that we'll be supporting over the next 12 months or so. Now, unfortunately, one of the guest panelists couldn't make it today, and it's a lady called Joanne Monck. So what we've got is a short intro video to play now that she wanted to do because she couldn't make it. So we're going to get that played right away, and then you can kind of hear Joanne's story.
Hi everyone. First of all, apologies for not being with you today. My name's Joanne Monck OBE. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I started my transition from male to female in 2014, became legally female in 2017 after gender surgery. I am, first of all, an independent advisor and hate crime ambassador to Sussex Police, serving on 6 different advisory panels. I'm a hate crime ambassador and advisor to the South East Crown Prosecution Service. I'm the Equality, Inclusion and Diversity Advisor for the Bluebell Heritage Railway. I'm a Stonewall Schools role model. I am an advisor and consultant to the Global Equality Collect. I'm a global mentor, and I'm also a global LGBT advocate for an organisation called Interpride. I am an ICV, or an independent custody visitor, for the Sussex Police Crime Commission. I go into custody centres and check on the welfare of detainees. In 2020, I was the highlighted winner of the We Are the City Top 100 Rising Star Awards in the diversity category, and also the recipient of a Chief Constable's Commendation for service and support to Sussex Police as a volunteer. In the end of 2020, I received a letter from the Cabinet Office to say that I'd been honoured with an OBE for services to transgender equality. As an independent advisor and a global LGBT advocate, I am passionate, absolutely passionate about raising awareness and understanding for the LGBT community, particularly transgender. Thank you for listening.
Brilliant. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that was Joanne Monck, and her story is an absolutely inspirational one, and you're going to hear a number over the coming hour. But you know, this is why includability for me is something that I'm so passionate about, something that's so needed, and something, as I said before, why I'm so overwhelmed that we've had the response that we've had with the people that have been wanting to kind of get involved in it and have their input in it. So without further ado, I'll catch up with you at the end as well. But I'm going to hand you back over now to Rachel, who will go through the Q&A for the rest of the session. I really hope you enjoy it. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, today we have 8 guests on the panel who are going to introduce themselves. So to start off with the introductions, we have Anna Kennedy, founder of UK Autism Charity.
Hi everyone, I'm a parent to 2 autistic adults, now aged 31 and 28, and my eldest son Patrick has got a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, and my youngest son Angelo is quite profoundly affected by his autism, got quite significant sensory processing condition and nocturnal epilepsy, hence why I've only had like 3 hours sleep. So for 28 years, they're both at home. Patrick is in the world of work, I'm pleased to say. He's been working for 3 years at Pinewood Studios. But just to go back to why I'm doing what I'm doing, we had to really fight through every single milestone of my son's lives. So for example, you know, at the start of their life, they didn't have a school to go to, they were just had 5 hours home tuition at home. Then, you know, I was reading all of the books about how early intervention is crucial for our children, and I really mean that it is, because you can see the difference when you're working as early with children with autism and how their milestones are improving all along. So I met another parent, again, was in a similar situation. So we decided that we needed to set up something because there was just nothing in the area. I was also told at that time that my sons were the only boys in Hillingdon that had autism, which made me feel very isolated. But 275 families came out of the woodwork, and then that's when it started to grow. So we found a building that they were going to knock down and build 37 flats. To cut a long story short, they said we had to raise £627,000 of the refurbishment in order to open the school. We did it for a lot less than that with the support of the community. I was rallying around people like the probation service. We had families that had children and adults, very much similar situation to myself, all came together. So I'm pleased to say 22 years down the line, almost over 500 children have gone through this school, and the very first child that came to us now works at the school as a teaching assistant, so that's amazing for me. My son Patrick, he's always wanted to basically do everything that everybody else wants to do, you know, have a good education, make friends, get a job, get married, get his own place, all of those sort of things. But it's just that he's needed a little bit of support along the line, and he was bullied as well when he was at mainstream school, and he sort of held on to those negative feelings, which has knocked his self-confidence, which we're always trying to boost. So I decided to set up the charity because parents, sort of 10 years down the line after my boys were at the school that we set up, they were going through the same difficulties that we went through. So diagnosis, trying to find the right type of school, navigating this really complicated special educational needs disability system that, you know, you need to learn a different language to be able to navigate it. I always say to parents, if you're finding it very overwhelming, always take somebody with you that knows the system, that can support you. So as we've got to adulthood, and it must be, quite a number of years now, I've heard this figure that only 16% of autistic adults are in full paid employment. It's probably less now with everything that's going on with COVID and redundancies. And my husband became a barrister so that he could help people in the special educational needs world. And also I was worried about places like the assessment treatment units in case my boys at any time had to go in such a place. So what we tried to do was plug every single hole that we possibly could to support our boys and also help navigate the world for them. So, and he's also noticed now that a lot of adults are being made redundant. They seem to be the first port of call who've got a disability due to what's going on with lockdown and everything that's going on and people making cuts. So that's really sad to hear. So I wanted to join Includability because I believe that autistic adults, if they're given the right space, the right support, the right reasonable adjustments, that they can make their mark in the world just like everybody else. They can offer so much with just some small reasonable adjustments. I'll give you an example. When my son was at college, they sat him at the back of the class and he was finding it difficult to concentrate, and he does get quite hot. Sometimes he finds it difficult to regulate his body temperature. So because he was at the back, he wasn't listening. He could hear everything that was going on around him because of the sensory issues that he had. The teacher spoke to me, the lecturers, and I just said, why don't you just sit him at the front? Sit him in a space where that, you know, he feels that he can hear and he's not being looked at by anyone, and put a small fan on his desk and he'll be fine. And in the first year, he got distinction for his course. And just those small little things made, you know, such a difference to my son. And also give him some time when he feels he's too overwhelmed, he's not in the right headspace for learning. Give him 5 or 10 minutes just to go out, have a little walk around, and then go back in the classroom. So those small things can make a difference. Speaking to many adults, they are so frustrated because they're trying to find a job. And many adults, when they fill out their application forms, are now actually not writing that they have a diagnosis of autism or Asperger's syndrome, because they feel that they're going to get discriminated against. And that's what my son did at first when he started applying for jobs. So he tried various things. He had apprenticeships as well. He's finding things difficult, like banter in the office and all that sort of thing, because he's very factual person. He feels that banter to him is a load of rubbish. I'll give you an example. If someone says it's sunny today, isn't the weather great? And he's thinking, well, why are they talking about it's sunny? They can see the sun's outside, so why do they have to talk about it? So those are just small little things, just to give you an idea of what my son found difficult. So he tried the apprenticeship, he tried everything. So his passion is paleontology, and also he's very into film. So a job came up at Pinewood Studios, not very far away from where I live. So I said, Patrick, why don't you apply for it? There wasn't a particular job that basically he wanted, but I said, get your foot in the door, Patrick, and then once you're in there, they'll see, you know, what you can offer, you know, show that you're a good timekeeper, that you're conscientious, you've got eye for detail. So he did apply for the job. I won't go through everything that went on, but it was just not a very good process for him, and it was very stressful. And also mixed messages of letters that were sent out. Even I was confused. So in the end, what I did was I looked on LinkedIn and I found the director of Pinewood Studios. And I'm not saying everyone should do this, but I did this for my son. And what I did was I spoke to him and I just said, your interview process is not geared for people on the autism spectrum. And so luckily, he told me that he had a relative that was on the spectrum and totally got where I was coming from. So what they actually did was, after Patrick went through another interview process, he was offered the job. They've actually changed the way they interview people. So from that, in a way, I'm glad in a way it didn't work at first, because now it's given opportunities to other individuals. So I just wanted to share that if you are a business, please give opportunities to adults on the spectrum. Sometimes they just need small, reasonable adjustments that will assist them. Some of them have got high levels of concentration, real reliability, conscientiousness, persistence. I've written all this down because it's got so much to offer. Accuracy, close to attention to detail, the ability to identify errors. I've spoken to a few businesses where they've identified errors where they didn't even know they existed. Technical ability, such as an IT, and detailed factual knowledge and an excellent memory. And I'm not saying that all individuals on the spectrum have this, because they're all so different from each other. If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. They're all so different from each other, but they have a lot to offer. They just need a platform to be able to show what they can do. So I'm just going to end on that, and just to say that please, if you are a business out there, don't just step over people who have autism or Asperger's syndrome, because they have a lot to offer and they want to show what they can do. Thank you.
And thank you, Anna. And next up to give their introduction is the Director of HR at Chelsea Football Club, Sara Matthews.
Hi, thanks, Rachel. So yes, as Rachel said, I'm a Director of HR for Chelsea Football Club, where I've been leading the HR team for the last 3 years, and I'm also the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Lead for the club. Just a little bit of background on me. I've had 25 years experience in HR, particularly in kind of FTSE retail and e-retail businesses, and now obviously in sport. I'm a fellow of the CIPD. From Chelsea's perspective and from my own personal perspective, I'm absolutely delighted that we're an official partner of Includability. It's really exciting to be part of this new journey and this new platform. And for me personally and for the club, I think we're just really excited to learn and exchange ideas, both with the great team who are part of Includability, but also with other employers, and as Anna said, to understand some of the challenges and actually help support people through their recruitment process and then into work in the organisation. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Sarah. We have former Paralympic champion, now managing director and co-founder at the Ability People, Liz Johnson.
That literally was my intro. So yes, Rachel said I used to swim, but now I co-founded the Ability People, which is an organisation that consults on normalising differences within the workplace to enable everybody to access meaningful employment opportunities. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Liz. Nice and to the point. And we also, from the Ability People, have Adil Ghani.
Hello. Yeah, so my name's Adil. I live with limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. I'm a consultant with the Ability People. I'm not a Paralympian. I like to boast about that fact. And I'm also a trustee of Penathlon Challenge. So I think Paul mentioned earlier on, but I went through the whole Penathlon system from being a competitor at their competitions to becoming an ambassador as I was leaving school. And then in 2015, I was asked to join the board of trustees. So technically I'm Ashley's manager, but Ashley doesn't need a lot of managing. So we let him get on with it and just check in every now and then. Awesome, thank you.
We also have Asperger's champion, Alex Manners.
Hello, yes, I'm Alex Manners, and I was diagnosed with Asperger's, which is a form of autism, when I was 10 years old. And I now present talks all over the UK, all about my life living with Asperger's, to law firms, schools, universities, councils, loads of different places. I've also written a book all about my life living with Asperger's, which I published in 2019. And I've also appeared on a show that some of you might have seen called The Undateables, which was on Channel 4. So that's just a little bit about me. And what I try and do with all my talks and my work is I want to be that voice for people with Asperger's who maybe don't feel confident enough to share their experiences. So, you know, I want to inspire people, you know, to never let their circumstances hold them back, and to educate them just about what it's like to live with Asperger's. So to have a platform like this is absolutely fantastic.
Next up, we have the founder of the Ministry of Defence BAME Women's Network, Norma Ncube. Are you there, Norma?
Yes, I am.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, I'm Norma Ncube. I'm Norma Ncube, and I am the founder of the MOT BAME Women's Network. But primarily, I'm reading for a PhD in gender and race, how those two intersect and affect the progression of BAME women in the workplace. My interest is, as I said, race and gender. However, why I felt drawn to the idea of includability was because we are all more than race and gender. All of us do have a race and gender at some spectrum. It's not exclusive to BAME people to have a race. It's not exclusive to women to have a gender. At the same time, I also realized that as a minority of the two different groups, I'm a minority in the gender group because I'm a woman. I'm a minority in the race group because I am BAME. So somehow I've got that added characteristic or identity of invisibility. So I'm invisible. And that made me think as well, wait, there are some people who are invisible too. I walk into a room, you see straight away, Black woman. Someone walks into a room, they might be Black woman, Black man, white man, but you cannot tell their sexual orientation, for example, their religious affiliations, for example, their neurodiversity, for example. So there's that as well. So I'm interested in including everyone in the fight for inclusion, because in order to be included, you need to include other people. So that's why I'm really into includability. And I believe also, my final belief is, in order to do this, I should not say, I should change a word in order to include everyone in my advocacy. So instead of saying, I am fighting for BAME rights, no, I'm fighting for racial equity. I am not fighting for women's rights. I'm fighting for gender equity. So if you just replace a word with something that includes everyone, no one feels they need to defend themselves or the other. Everyone comes together and fights for equity, because once we have equity, we naturally have the equality that we all want, regardless of whatever characteristic or identity we have. So that's why I'm all for includability. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the CEO of Business Disability Forum, Diane Lightfoot.
Hello, thank you, Rachel. I'm CEO of Business Disability Forum, and we are a not-for-profit membership organisation that supports businesses of all shapes, sizes and sectors to get better at recruiting and retaining disabled people. And I've been working in the disability inclusion space for 17 years now, and it always strikes me that what do you do is still one of the first questions that we ask when we meet someone new, whether that's professionally or socially. And for too many disabled people, that's still a really difficult question to answer. So only about 50% of working age disabled adults are in employment versus about 80% of the wider population. And as Anna highlighted, that's even lower for some groups. So 16% of working age adults with autism, less than 6% for working age adults with learning disabilities. So this is such an important space, and that's why I'm so pleased to be here to support the launch of Includability.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have the founder and managing director at Mental Health Charter, Michael Lloyd.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Michael Lloyd, the founder and managing director of the Mental Health Charter. The Mental Health Charter is all about working with businesses to open the doors and wrap our arms around everybody who may be suffering, especially during the pandemic as well. We're all about, there's some fantastic charities out there like Mind and Samaritans who do some wonderful and fantastic things for mental health awareness. Where the Mental Health Charter comes in is about early intervention, about joining with businesses to put in some training on mental health awareness, mental health first aid training, but also look at mindfulness and how we can support each other during difficult times. And I could go on forever, but Rachel will probably shout at me, so I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. All right. Okay. Well, I know that all of our panelists want to make employment accessible to all. However, as you've clearly heard, they all come from very different backgrounds and they have their own areas of expertise. So now they're all going to have the chance to give a little bit more detail through a Q&A. To kick us off, we're going to go to Liz Johnson, as she's been heavily involved in this platform. So Liz, can you tell us why you think it's important that a platform like this exists?
Yeah, I think the difference with Includability and other job boards and platforms that are similar, like Paul alluded to in the intro, is that the onus is on the organizations that are getting involved and signing up to follow the process through, because so often the attraction is there, and there are a lot of job boards out there or other services that attract people who are different in some way and give them a positive experience at that point. But there's no way of ensuring that that can continue through the whole entire process. But similarly, as Diane alluded to, there's an element of fear around knowing what the right thing to do is. So by engaging in with Includability between all of the different partners and support services, we can help people on that process and that procedure, so that they ensure that they are being equitable and inclusive, and they're supported, and there's nothing to be concerned about. Because so often I think the issue is that people don't want to do the wrong thing, so they end up doing nothing. But in order to move things forward, we need to have these conversations. We need to put in practical application into making differences. And so that, for me, was why I wanted to get involved in something like Includability.
And Michael, you come from it from a little bit of a different perspective, don't you? Because as Liz, she's heavily involved in people with physical disabilities at the Ability People, but with the invisible disabilities, with mental health issues, it can be a little bit different, can't it?
Yeah, and I think it's important that when we think about the Includability platform, it's about including you, me, and everybody, and how we can all support each other. And I'm absolutely humbled and honoured to be on this panel with some absolutely fantastic ambassadors who have got amazing stories. And even with a background in HR as well, it's even when you are thinking of recruiting somebody and somebody comes to you, it's about turning that challenge into an opportunity. And it's about looking at somebody who might need some more support, and you may have never experienced that before. And your first thought is, where do I go to support this person? Well, the great thing about, the platform for Includability is that, for example, on the mental health side, if you actually had somebody come forward and actually told you they had a mental health diagnosis or an illness, you would be able to go onto the Includability website. You'd be able to see a page there all about the Mental Health Charter and what we stand for. There'll be videos on there, there'll be workshops on there. And also, I'd be able to give Michael a call at the Mental Health Charter. He'll be able to point us in the right direction. And I think that's really important for everybody. And, if we can all work together and move forward, the world's changing and there's still a long way to go. But, you will have the expertise there to be able to help and support you within your business, to be able to point you in the right direction should you need that support as well.
And Adil, do you think that your previous years of work would have been any different if something like Includability had been around before?
Definitely. I mean, as I said, I work as a consultant with the Ability People, but after I left school, I never applied for a job. Right, because I didn't know of anybody in a similar situation to me in any sort of employment. So there wasn't a role model I could look up to. And I think that's the case for a lot of disabled individuals, particularly on the younger end of the spectrum. And like a lot of people with disabilities, I sort of resigned myself to doing multiple college courses and voluntary work, right? And I was in that sphere. I wanted to work, but in all honesty, I didn't think that the world of employment was ready, right, for somebody with the kind of needs that I have to come in and start full-time work. And I was fortunate to get headhunted by Liz, right, at the Ability People and through our network. But I want young people with disabilities to have an equitable experience and equal opportunity to find meaningful employment. And I think the meaningful bit is really important because, whatever job anybody's doing, they should feel like they're having an impact in their work and that their work is important. So that's why I think, meaningful employment is really important. But also, I think Includability can give people role models that are similar to them and in similar situations. And I think that way, people can be inspired, right, and not see their disability as a barrier to employment. And I think Includability 100% can provide those role models for a lot of young people. I think as well, just to add on a little bit more, when we thinking about Includability, it's about providing equitable experience for everyone. And the difference between equity and equality is really important, because equality is about treating everyone the same, right? But that doesn't work, right? Because you can put stairs at the front of a building and say, right, well, we're treating everyone the same, we're giving them the stairs to get in. But that doesn't work for everyone. Whereas equity is a lot more about giving people what they need to be successful, right, in the workplace or in other areas of life. So I think it's a key distinction to make, and that's where Includability has made that distinction, right? And we're all about providing equal opportunities, so everyone should have the right to access an opportunity, but it should be an equitable experience so that people can access it in the way that they need to give them the best chance of being successful. Yeah.
Thank you, Adil. And as we all probably know from experience, people can do a lot of talk, but unless action is actually put in place, then things are never going to change. So, I mean, this obviously applies to includability as well. Unless people within the workplace are willing to make changes, then nothing is going to change. And Diane, we've previously spoken, haven't we, about why it's important that employee engagement needs to happen for an inclusive culture to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of what we are talking about is about culture. I saw a question in the Q&A actually around it being 25 years, 26 years this year since the Disability Discrimination Act. And although lots of things can be enacted in legislation, some of the softer things around organisational culture and values and the messages we send people are not things you can legislate for, but are so fundamental in shifting the dial on inclusive recruitment and retention. I think, you know, people, our culture, all of us in all the organisations we work for make that culture from top to bottom. And at the senior level, it's about the senior leadership and setting the tone and what matters around here. John Amici, who's an amazing speaker, spoke at one of our events a couple of years ago, and he said, people make choices, choices make culture. And that's equally true of leaders. Leaders make choices, choices make culture. And things that senior people say and do have a disproportionate impact for good or for bad. So as good examples, I've seen some brilliant examples of senior people within major businesses, HSBC being one, for example, who have talked really openly about their experiences of mental ill health, one instance of having a breakdown, and then reinvigorating a mental health network around that. And the impact that had in making it okay for other people in the bank to talk about mental health issues and other disabilities was huge. Equally, throwaway remarks or disconnected messaging, you know, if you want to launch a mental health program, but at the same time the things you reward are around long hours culture or are around who has made the biggest sale, or it's about, and this is a real example, somebody who was talking to us about launching a mental health program, and then at the end of the meeting, when there was still quite a lot of people there in the room, was talking, and I boasting actually about having had an operation the previous year and being back at work the next day. And those sorts of things really undermine the messages about, you know, what actually is okay. Is it okay to talk about what you need and talk about anything that you think might be perceived as a weakness or even just a difference? And the role of employee resource groups here is really important, but to be effective, they need to be linked into senior management and a senior champion, either across D&I or for each of the characteristics, so that their voice is heard and is then translated into meaningful change. And some of the places that works really well are where networks are used to user test new policies and processes and check they're accessible up front. To design engagement surveys and to design things like specific career development programs, reciprocal mentoring. These are all things that can really bring to life some of the things that we're talking about from a network point of view. And the final thing I would want to mention really is the role of allies. So just yesterday we had our global task force, and we were hearing from a campaign called 50 Million Voices, which is about acceptance of people who stammer or stutter in the workplace, and they were saying that, you know, 1% of people, or possibly up to 3% of people, have a stammer, but actually you're only going to change the workplace and culture and acceptance and actually real job opportunities for people if you change the 99%. So engaging with people as allies and understanding and building that culture across the piece is absolutely vital.
Thank you. And just because so many of us have a passion for inclusivity, it doesn't mean achieving it is going to be easy. I mean, Sara, what do you think is going to be the biggest obstacle to companies when attracting diverse talent?
I think, Rachel, for me, there's probably a couple of things that I would kind of flag. I think number one, and it probably links in with lots of things that other people have said, but I think companies need to be more confident about stepping forward and showing their commitment to diversity and inclusion so that they attract different people, different experiences, and they can support different needs. And something like includability, and to Michael's point, there's going to be so much information, and actually just people you can go and ask questions of. We've worked a lot with Liz and Adil and yourself with disability awareness, and one of the brilliant things about it is actually just being able to ask the questions so that you can understand how to support people. So number one, I think companies need to be confident and they need to step forward. I think they need to showcase the roles. Bit to Diane's point, you know, what's the values, what's the culture of the organisation, helping candidates to understand what that organisation's like. So using your colleagues and your staff to talk about the different job roles, to talk about different opportunities, maybe some of the groups that you have, your mental wellness groups, your wellness committees, social committees, etc. So people sort of get a little bit of a feel of the organisation that they might be going into. Really important for candidates, any candidates, but I think particularly for people who perhaps maybe are a little bit more anxious about what an organisation might be like. I think also we need to be really thoughtful about our content and the variety of our content. So how we share, you know, on LinkedIn or whatever people's job post areas might be, you know, how do we talk about the things that the organisation does, the things that are important to the organisation. Think about what language we're using, also, you know, about technology. So there's some excellent opportunities to really use technology to enhance the way that we recruit and the way that we attract talent, and moving away from everything has to be an application form and paper, and Paul was talking earlier about audio and video, and I think those are really exciting.
Oh, I think Sara may have
the opportunity to kind of
Sorry, Sara. Sorry, Sara. It froze halfway through, but feel free to pick up.
Sorry, just working at home, right? So I was talking about content, imagery, using technology. So things like, you know, video and audio applications rather than just the traditional application form. And I think I've gone again.
No, we can still hear you. I will move on to Alex, because me and Alex have been chatting quite a lot recently about... Oh, it's absolutely no problem, Sara. As we all heard at the top, I had major technical issues as soon as we started. But Sara, if you are okay for us to move on to Alex. Alex, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. As we all know, technical issues while we're doing a lot of working from home. But we've just been discussing obstacles that companies face when they're attracting diverse talent. But from your point of view, Alex, I mean, Sara's spoken from a company point of view, but from you, for somebody who's trying to get yourself into the workplace, what sort of obstacles have you faced?
I think one thing is that there are a lot of preconceived ideas around certain disabilities. So I have Asperger's, which is a form of autism, and you know, especially even when I was at school, people used to think, well, you know, Alex, you know, people with Asperger's can't look you in the eye. Well, Alex can look you in the eye. So what's wrong with Alex? You know, Alex can sit in the back of the classroom, and he seems absolutely fine. So why do we need to make these adjustments? And I think breaking down those preconceived ideas that, you know, as Anna said, everyone with autism is different. So no two people are the same. So yes, there will be traits generic traits that a lot of people will have. You know, people with Asperger's, you know, find sensory things difficult. So they may find certain noises, certain sounds, light difficult. They may have specialist interests that they're really passionate about, but those will be different for every individual. So, you know, everyone with, as Anna said, once you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And I think also one of the other challenges to people like myself getting into employment and into the world of work is the interviewing process, because generally people with Asperger's struggle with social communication and interaction. So an interview can be really, really difficult, and often an employee won't be able to see the huge amount of skills and talents that we can actually bring to a company, because, you know, in a traditional interviewing process, we're not being asked to show any of those skills or perform any tasks that we would be doing in the job. You know, an interview is completely different to the world of work that we'd be working in. And I think just by doing really, really small, or making really, really small adjustments to the world of interviews, and even once someone is employed, you know, to a working environment, can be really, really beneficial. And going back to what I said about people having preconceived ideas, you know, I've known people in the past who haven't really had much understanding around Asperger's, but what they have had is empathy for that individual. And they've understood that, you know, if that person needs to read a book if they're stressed, or listen to their music on their phones if they need to for 5 minutes, then that can really, really benefit that person. So yes, I think we need to break down the preconceived ideas that people have around certain disabilities, which can be one of the challenges of people getting into employment, but also just for people to, you know, encourage them to have empathy for the individual and understand if that individual needs something changed or something implemented, however small, a lot of the time it's small things, then that will really benefit that individual.
Thank you, Alex. And Anna, I could see you nodding frantically throughout Alex's speech there. Was there anything you'd like to add? Oh, sorry, Anna, you're on mute. Thank you.
Probably better I'm on mute. I think the key thing is training, consistency in training. And I'm not talking about half a day's training. I'm not talking about giving them an A4 page with a little bit of writing on. I'm talking about proper training. And what I didn't say at the beginning was about what I do. So obviously I set up a school, and, you know, I've got 2 sons and I'm passionate about everything I do, and I'm constantly speaking to families. But I set up a charity called Kennedy Online, and that happened in 2009, and it was because of parents struggling, same as I was all those years ago, and I thought nothing seems to have changed. So we offer training. A lot of the training is given by autistic adults. So our charity is made up of people who volunteer their time. Nobody gets paid in the charity. I don't get paid in the charity. And it's because we're passionate. It's because we're driven. It's because we're enthusiastic about what we do and we want to make a change. So most of my ambassadors, my patrons, my charity champions, they're either autistic, fantastic role models, or their parents or carers or even grandparents. There's only one person that we have as a patron who is hasn't got a relative or is not autistic. He's been with us for 8 years and he absolutely loves what he does, what we do, and we call it, he's part of our AKO family, like the Anna Kennedy Online family. So we offer training. We're doing workshops a lot more now because of obviously what's going on with COVID. We've created events like Autism's Got Talent. I do a lot of stuff with performing arts. So that's been going for 10 years, where we showcased talented autistic children and adults who've got wow factor talent, and they've been given opportunities and a platform. I also, we're working towards our AKO Autism Expo. We normally do it at Brunel University, and everything that we do is, it's not, how can I say, it's like £10, £15. We don't charge a lot as well for what we do, because there's a lot of families out there that are struggling, that, you know, they haven't got a lot of money, and if we can make concessions even further, we will do so. So we rely on donations and sponsorship. So we're having our Autism Expo, where we've got speakers for 2 days, and they are going to be talking on a Friday and a Saturday. We've got 7 speakers, and they're amazing speakers. Then we also record it, and then it's put up on YouTube afterwards for people that couldn't attend. We have the Autism Hero Awards, which is something that created, because I think we should celebrate people that go the extra mile. So it could be a teacher, parent, a carer, a business, a reporter that writes particularly well. I also have an anti-bullying campaign because of my son being bullied at school. I've worked with the NSPCC and the Anti-Bullying Alliance, and we've created a campaign called Give Us a Break. And now in lockdown, there is more bullying going on online, and it's just some of the things that I've read are absolutely awful. And so what we're trying to do is raise more awareness about bullying. I'm working with Katie Price as well at the moment, because obviously Harvey has been bullied horrifically. So she's got Harvey's Law, and she's created another petition which is going to be launched very, very soon. So I do whatever I can to raise awareness about autism and to create a platform so that children and adults basically can showcase what they do. So that's what I'm about. And I think I'll keep doing it till I'm like 80 or 90, because I'm very, very passionate about what I do. So I just work within the charity. I did create a school, 2 schools, a college and a residential home. I've worked in that sector for like 22 years, but now I'm totally focused on the charity and creating lots of projects to raise awareness and acceptance, which is key as well. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Anna, and definitely keep on going hard at it, because passion is everything within the workplace. And Norma is somebody else who has a lot of passion, but more towards gender equality. Norma, what would you say is an obstacle when trying to attract diverse talent when it comes to gender?
Most of the problems with attracting any talent, any diverse talent, with any company, is the problem of the audio not matching the visual. By that I mean, the audio is very good. The company says, we welcome all diverse people, diverse views, diverse everything, come to us, we're very inclusive. And people sign up and say, yes, I'm going to work for company X. Once they are in the company, because of that audio the company set out, the visual begins not to match. There's an African saying that says, if you're peeling peanuts for a blind man, whistle throughout that time so that he knows you're not eating his peanuts. So what it means here is the leadership should have transparency, accountability, and be honest. So if you say you welcome all genders, by the way, there's that spectrum. It's not just men and women. There's a lot of genders in between. If you say you welcome everyone and everyone comes in and they want to bring their whole self to work and belong there, but you as the leadership are not sticking to what you said in the audio, the visuals are not matching up. The leadership team is made up of just a certain gender mainly, or a mix of 2 genders. Oh yeah, we've got a man, we've got a woman. Yes, we're fine now. No, why don't you have someone who is neither man or woman, someone in the middle, binary, intersex, transgender, anyone. That way, the audio is matching the visual. You said you are inclusive. I can see someone who looks like me in there, so you are inclusive. Do you have an excuse for not having any of these? If there is an excuse, what are you doing to make a solution? And the other thing is, these problems come because no one in there is, no one of that gender or characteristics is in the room where these decisions are made, the room where it happens. So yes, there's a difference between hallucination and vision. So I'm not saying overnight all these boards should have diversity. But once you realize that we are lacking a certain characteristic in the board to inform our decision, nothing wrong with looking for a representative from one of the staff networks or one of the junior ranks or people who work there, who can come in and inform the board of what they feel is lacking and how to attract more people. And as you go, as people see that you are making some kind of headway towards change, people begin to trust you, people stay. Otherwise, you're left, people will leave. And by leaving, I'm not saying people resign or look for other jobs, because it's hard to get a job. It's difficult in the employment streets out there, but people can just leave invisibly, just be there, tick the boxes, do the minimum, go home, come back to work, and there you hit the bottom line. It hits your profit and your profit and your productivity, and becomes a proper business problem, which I believe is what D&I is. It's a business problem, not HR, because it really hits the bottom line. That's the finance side of me speaking. But yeah, so the problem is the audio should match the visual. Once those two match, everything's good. Equity, equality will be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. And so many of our attendees were commenting as you were talking, and as well as our panelists nodding. Clearly, it's something that we all believe in, authentic inclusivity. And it's not just our panelists who are passionate about this subject and change. It seems to be that it's a hot topic within the workplace to create diversity and inclusion. Michael, why do you think that is?
I think, you know, at the moment, the world's changing. We're going through a pandemic, which is, especially for mental health, has been mentioned daily. Even the government talking about it. You know, we have to accept, you know, we need all talents, you know, to help us deliver our products and services. That's why I think, you know, as a business or an employer, we need to put as much effort into diversity and inclusion, mental health, well-being as we can. We need to just learn to be more open about it, and accept that challenges, you know, turning them into an opportunity. And we need to learn to be more curious as well, because, you know, if we embed into our businesses that actually we are inclusive, and we've received a lot of messages recently in terms of mental health saying, my employer says they're open to mental health and support, but as soon as I raise an issue, they shut off to us. And it's about actually working with employers to help and support them, give them the information that they need and give them the support that they need, and to create that diverse and inclusive environment. And this is where, you know, Includability platform is world changing as far as I'm concerned. It's something we all need, and we can all move forward with it and helping each other. And, you know, listening to everybody today, it should really open up everybody's eyes that actually there are people with lived experiences that can really help us all to understand how we can move forward, and why diversity and inclusion is such a hot topic, and it always has been a hot topic. And it's easy for us to put we are an inclusive employer, but what does that actually mean? Is it embedded as far as the employee rather than just at the top end as well? It needs to go all the way through, that the employee actually feels that the diversity and inclusion and the mental health support within that business really makes a difference. Because for us, in terms of the mental health charter, if an employee sat there feeling they have mental health concerns or a diagnosis, if they haven't got an employer there that, for example, signs the mental health charter to show that support, and all of a sudden that employee then feels that they can talk to their employer because they've opened up those doors, they've signed the mental health charter, therefore that employee sat at that table who really needs the support right now can go in and talk to somebody who is there for them. That could have saved that person's life in terms of mental health awareness, and you'll hear some inspiring stories on the platform as well. But it's just really important we really open ourselves up, and you know, don't be ashamed to be curious and ask the questions, because people, especially with mental health diagnosis or illnesses, are really keen to talk to you about it. So don't be afraid to ask those questions, because it could really help you and also help them as well.
Thank you, Michael. And Sara, the Premier League has its equality, diversity and inclusion standard that was launched this year, so clearly a very hot topic. At Chelsea, have you committed to any initiatives, and have you had any I'm sorry, stumbling over my words, and have you had any success so far?
Yeah, hopefully I'll stay with you this time, Rachel. I'm going to try not to throw my arms in the air in a very Italian way, and it might keep the internet connection stable. I think for Chelsea, we've we've got a very clear pathway, and our pathway, I suppose, is around the narrative around football. So football as a sector, and people's perceptions of football, the types of job roles, the careers on and off the pitch. So those sort of initiatives around recruitment have been really important. Education and awareness raising, this has come up a couple of times with other colleagues on the panel, but every colleague has an EDI training pathway, but to Anna's point earlier, this isn't a half-day session that just happens once in a while. It's continuous through the year, and then we have specific topics like the disability awareness program that we just completed that we really focus on and go into a lot of depth to really try and understand and raise awareness. The more awareness colleagues have around the business, the more people understand and help remove barriers, whether that's people who are inside the business or people potentially coming to the organisation. I think a couple of other initiatives, data is really important. You have to understand what your recruitment pipeline looks like. You need to understand what your workforce looks like, and then you need to do an analysis of those gaps, and then you can really target what you're trying to do. So Includability will help me with my sort of gap analysis, if you like. Again, right across the club, and this was part of our work with the Premier League EDI standard, which we achieved advanced in 2020, which we were delighted about. But that requires you to have a full EDI action plan across every department in the club, and we have a lot of different departments. You need to really look at all of your processes and practices and understand how they work in practice for people, and get advice from specialists and subject matter experts and people that know what they're talking about. We have a formalised working group across the club, which has 5 of the exec committee, including myself. So it's not the HR, leading this. It's a number of different members of the organisation at a senior level, which is super important. It's not just a job for HR to think that EDI is important. It's everybody's job. So we've also then just a couple of other things, partnering with external organisations, doing things like Includability, really being early signatories for the FA Leadership Diversity Code. So all of those things are kind of initiatives that the club has hopefully successfully put in the last few years, and they're all work in progress. They need embedding, they need lots of work. New challenges come up, COVID it being an excellent example of a new challenge, so that's all of the kind of things that we focus on.
Thank you, Sarah. And as we've heard from everybody, but especially Norma when she was talking about being authentically inclusive, we don't want Includability to just become a tick box for people just to log in. And as Paul said at the top, actually, if that's what you're about, then you're not going to get through the process that Includability wants. Includability wants people who are really passionate about this and actually want to make a difference. And to conclude on that, Liz is going to give her final say on how she would like other businesses to get involved and how she thinks Includability can really help them.
I think there's 2 really interesting questions in the Q&A in that, and it's a very valid point, that the Disability Discrimination Act came into effect more than 25 years ago, yet we're still having this conversation, and it's the one area that hasn't moved on significantly. The disability employment gap was over 30% for over a decade, and that to me, that's why the ability people exist. That's why Includability is something that people should get involved in, because we all talk about the problem, everybody's aware of what the challenges are, but now we need to actually start acting on them and making a difference. The world is 2021, and we have more technology available to us. We have more access to education. We have more information. We now know that just because someone doesn't have the same physical ability or mental cognitive function as somebody else, it does not mean that they are not capable. And so we need to reframe and educate people on what that means, like contextualize what disability is. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not a negative word. And actually, we're not living in 1950 anymore. It's a difference. It's a part of who you are. It absolutely influences the way we do things, and we would be foolish to not accept that and acknowledge that. But it doesn't have to limit our output. and our ability to achieve objectives. So I would say that's why we haven't moved on, is because people talk about it a lot, but there's not enough examples of visibility of role models, like Adil mentioned right at the top of the webinar. Like those role models don't exist because it's the one, disability specifically is the one area where people accept if you don't have a job, they don't question it, they make assumptions as to why that is, and that's not okay. And so primarily what I want includability to be about, and why I would want and encourage organizations to get involved, is because there's a lot of people here that can help with that education, with that understanding. But also that then leads on to the second question that was originally for Anna. I'm going to steal it, sorry, but if you come up with a better answer, then obviously jump in. But like, where can businesses go to learn more about tailoring interviews? You want to make them inclusive, but ultimately what we want to do eventually is not have to tailor them, not have to make reasonable adjustments. Like includability is saying, we want a platform for all, regardless of what your difference is. So if we can get to a place where we can provide options so that individual chooses their best way to represent themselves, then actually they don't have to distinguish themselves from their peers. And actually then we don't have to worry about giving somebody an unfair advantage, because we are just giving them an opportunity to present themselves in their best light and to succeed and achieve an objective. And then if they are not successful, we know it's because they're not the right candidate for that specific role. It's not because of something that unnecessarily got in their way. So to that question, Sandy, I would say show your interest to join Includability, because even if you're not right there right now, the whole point of Includability is to support organizations on that journey, on that evolution, so that we can advance together to a fully inclusive world, which is what I think everybody who's joined the call, who's on the panel, that's what we want, that's what we believe in. But we would be naive to say that there are no barriers. There are plenty of barriers, but between us, conversation, education, exposure, and development of that empathy can help us all get there. So that's all from me.
Thank you, Liz, and I hope everyone's feeling a little bit more motivated after that. And thank you to all of our panelists. But just to finish off, we're going to hear from Joanne Monck again. She was named in this year's honours list for services to transgender equality.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more now about includability and what includability has to offer. It offers employers, organisations, companies to be totally aware and almost pledge to involving themselves and engaging with their employees on different aspects of diversity, inclusion and equality. And I created a mnemonic out of the letters of the word includability, and that reads as such: I, inspiring, and N, nurturing, C, confidence in, L, leaders, to U, understand, and D, develop, A, awareness, B, belonging, and I, inclusivity, L, learning, I, involving themselves for years to come. It's very important that this is understood in an organisation, that we're all human beings, we all deserve the right to be recruited on a fair basis, and this is what Includability are asking employers to do, to be fair in how they recruit, to be aware of things like unconscious bias and microaggressions, and make sure that everybody within their organisation has that understanding. As a consultant and a public speaker, I'm more than happy to talk to organisations about my life, about the LGBT community, and the support systems that you need to have in place in order to attain and continue with includability. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to finish off, we are going to hear some closing words from Paul Smith, Includability's founder.
Thank you, Rachel. And look, thank you to everyone that has spoken today. I'm feeling a little bit emotional. I'm not going to lie, I'm not often lost for words, but to see my dream and to see this vision that that was created in my head only a few months ago, and to have the level of personnel that kind of you see before you today, and so many more that they've given so much and so much input to get to where we are today. It has been truly a team effort to get here today. And I think some key points from what we've just heard there really is it's all around, you know, awareness, education, and empowerment. People aren't born knowing what to say. I've had conversations, so many conversations with every single company, charity, membership body, and ambassador involved in Includability. And Norma, you know, finance business partner by day and doing glorious things by kind of day and night. But Norma created something within the MOD and the RAF called Kitchen Table Talks. And that is an opportunity where it just gives people, her colleagues, who are not born knowing how to ask something, the opportunity to ask something that might be deemed offensive to somebody else. Now, putting that platform together to say, come in, it's a closed, these four walls, ask anything. That is the way that companies can become even more inclusive. We have to allow employees to build their knowledge. The only way to do that is to get everyone involved. So diversity and inclusion, I think Lindsay F made a very, you know, it is everybody's job. It doesn't just sit with HR. It doesn't just sit with a diversity and inclusion consultant. It doesn't sit with the leaders, and it doesn't sit with the, it sits with absolutely everyone. And I suppose the question I would ask, if you're within a business, is there are four main pillars to includability. You've got diversity and inclusion, environmental and sustainability, mental health and well-being, and the ex-military. Each of those are really, really important. But outside of those tiny little hubs that I've just mentioned, how many of your organization are aware of something that team is doing, and how regularly is it communicated? Because even just having base knowledge of every single one of those will give people the opportunity to build their knowledge. And that's how a business becomes more authentically inclusive. We're priding ourselves on not just being a job board, but being kind of almost that in between kind of membership body, between building a community, building that platform to really kind of inspire people to say, do you know what, actually, I am who I am. I can do that job. I have got the ability, and I'm going to apply. It's going to take all of us and a monumental effort to actually take action. And that's what we want from everyone kind of that's listening today and kind of moving forward. It's not a quick fix. We know that nobody is perfect, but together we can absolutely drive for collective change. And that's what kind of we really want. So look, I thank you ever so much. Keep an eye on kind of all our social media. Like I said, the job board goes live on the 4th of May. We'll be keeping it updated regularly. Companies can pre-register now. Anyone that's put a Q&A or a message in the Q&A, if we haven't answered it already, rest assured that question will make its way to the panelist. We will collate all of the answers, put it into a document, and so you have all the answers. But do get in touch if anyone's got any other questions before kind of, or that hasn't been kind of answered already. And look, thank you ever so much for everyone coming, and thank you so much all the guests, and Rachel for being an amazing host, or hostess, in fact, hostess. But look, thank you everyone for all of your time, and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.